What's up, comic and pop culture fans? One of my favorite things to talk about on this channel is underrated and underpriced books. But today, we're going to be talking about books that I commonly find are overpriced over what people are really willing to pay. There are certain titles that I tend to find that people seem to overestimate the value on, and I thought I'd share the trends with you here. For today's criteria, we are not talking about books that are priced high and that is their fair market value. We're talking about books that are priced high and that's not their fair market value. First things first, I finally figured out what we're going to do for the 50,000 subscriber giveaway, an ASM 300 9.8. You could be a winner. Just make sure you're subscribed, like, and comment on all the videos when they come up. First on the list has to be Silver Age Fantastic Four. If I'm going to find any Silver Age Marvel books, typically the first thing that people are willing to sell is Thor and Fantastic Four. But strangely, Thor people know how to price accordingly, whereas with Fantastic Four, I tend to see a lot of overestimations. Let's say a book's worth 20 bucks. A lot of times I have people asking for 40 or 50. Let's say the book's 100 bucks. I have a lot of people asking for 200. I visit comic book shops and I find FF books often priced higher than what people actually pay. There's not a ton of Silver Age on this list, but I definitely wanted to mention that. Let's take a trip to the Bronze Age with a Marvel and a DC title. We got Marvel 2-in-1, and with DC, you got DC Comics Presents. I kind of lumped these together because they're kind of similar. Marvel 2-in-1 was an arc that came out in the 70s and 80s where it was Marvel's The Thing teaming up or versing many different characters, and DC Comics Presents is Superman teaming up and versing several different characters. They're kind of similar runs. I kind of lump them together in my head sometimes. The thing with both of these runs that they have in common too is the keys are very few and far between. There's not a lot in either of them. I think DC Comics Presents has like maybe 6 or 7, and most of them are pretty teeny tiny. I will say it's a really fun run to put together, and it's a very manageable run, but a lot of times shops and customers, they value it higher than it is. And maybe that's because they were really fun reads. So there could be a little bit of just fond memories associated with this stuff, and I think maybe that's what it is. Because I don't find that to be the case with Marvel Team Up. I don't find it to be the case with Marvel Age, and some of the other titles very similar to those titles. So it's kind of just a very niche, oddball thing. Next is going to be 60s Superman. This stuff is out there, man. You got to remember that in the Silver Age, Superman was the biggest seller. Before the big Marvel push, Superman was the king. So of all the DC Silver Age stuff, the most common you're going to find is Supes or Action Comics, and maybe Superman related, so like Adventure Comics, maybe Superboy. There's been so many books that I think, I'm never going to see it again. And I've seen it like 40 times since then. And if you research the FMVs of this stuff, it reflects that. This stuff is out there. It is one of the more affordable Silver Age pickups out there. But oftentimes, I've noticed on Whatnot, sometimes I see people trying to get a lot more than what the actual books do sell for. I get it, it's Superman, but it's out there. Okay, next is Wolverine the Limited Series. Holy smokes, Batman is this one that gets overpriced. There seems to be some severe discrepancies in the actual evaluation of a complete run of this 4-issue series. Some people think it's X, some people think it's Z, and usually it's pretty far off. And yes, I know that the newsstands do give it a slight bump, but you got to remember for the early 80s, newsstands were just as prevalent as the directs, and I kind of think they shouldn't really give it a bump, but I understand that they do slightly. Regardless, this is the number one thing that people are like, hey, can you do $500 for a full set of this? No, I can't. And I flip the laptop around and I show them that the last recent sold for a full run was like $200. It's definitely one of those investment grade things and series, but it's just not as investment grade as you think. Let's take a trip back to the 80s with Transformers. Now, He-Man, Thundercats, G.I. Joe, some of the other toy-related ones, people seem to be pretty accurate with their pricing, but for Transformers, they seem to be a little bit off. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of Transformers books with some frickin' value, man. There's some really good ones in there, a lot of fun in Transformers. But I do find that it's the #1 toy-related series where people have the most unrealistic expectations. And interestingly, I'm not talking about the first 4 issues. I'm talking about like issue 5 or 6 through like 50 is the pocket that I tend to see people want way more than what the books actually go for. It's something I've seen time and time again, and I don't really have an explanation for it, especially when there are all the pricing tools, but it's so much higher that it's worth mentioning on this list. Let's go back to the Bronze Age. I'm doing 3 characters here. Luke Cage, Shang-Chi, Iron Fist. These are kind of the New York 3, other than Spider-Man and Daredevil, that I kind of lumped together because they do a lot of team-ups and stuff. But also lumped together, I tend to find that they often have some crazy over-evaluations. I got a full run of Shang-Chi in recently, and frankly, I don't know how I actually got it, because the guy wanted like $1 million. I was able to show the proof and the evidence on what it's really worth, and we were able to cut a deal. For some reason, this Marvel pocket, while a lot of people want it, and it does have a lot of value, you do get the dudes that put a way higher price tag on it. And I mentioned Shang-Chi, but particularly Power Man, Luke Cage, a lot of his books are probably lower than you might think. All right, we're now in the top 3. So number 3, and this is going to make some people a little bit sad. And I'm sorry I'm coming for you here, but it's 80s Amazing Spider-Man. Let's get real, guys. This stuff exists. It's in every shop. It's in every yard sale. It's in every flea market. And while there is good value, and frankly, littered with keys and great covers and classic stuff, it is, after all, the most collected title of any series ever. It is very commonly overpriced. More like $1 or $2 books where people are asking sometimes up to $10. Very steady $10 books where you have people asking for $20 or $30. I can't tell you how many shops to this day have some pretty goofy price tags on some Amazing Spider-Man. And if you very easily go check recent solds, you see they sell for a hell of a lot cheaper. And I do find that people price the more 90s ASM a little bit more appropriately, but it's specifically the 80s that you got to understand it was pretty much as prevalent as the 90s. This stuff is in every house, man. It really is. Second to last has to go to 90s X-Men. While Uncanny X-Men has a lot of value, it can take you decades to complete that run. The 90s run not only is very easily attainable, but even the keys are like $20 at the most. But time and time again, I keep seeing these collections come my way with some goofy sticker prices showing up on these books. Most commonly, I gotta put on blast Omega Red. Now granted, some of these prices could be left over from COVID, but no, this is not a $50 book. I think like a perfect condition raw is $20. Unless you got the newsstand, it's $20. And honestly, I've started to see them sell for less than that. So take that with a grain of salt. Hell, I'll see like $7, even up to $10 priced on some of these non-key first 30 books from the run. And that's wild to me. This is the most highest print count comic run of all time. Let that sink in for a second. More than Amazing Spider-Man, more than Superman, more than anything. The 90s X-Men run had the craziest print counts. Honestly, it was a great time to be alive. It was a great time to be an X-Men fan. Everybody had it. Everybody talked about it. But that also means that everyone has it. When you have such a high supply, the demand is lower. You got to understand that comics are worth what people are willing to pay, but I think you'll find with prices like that, it's just going to sit and sit and sit. All right, and number one, and it's not even close, the number one thing that I always see priced hilariously too high, ratio variance. You knew this was coming, man. 1 in 25s, 1 in 50, 1 in 100s, where they just take absolutely nothing books and they just will say that the 1 in 25 is a clean $25. If you go on eBay, you will find that most 1 in 25 variants sell for about $10, unless it's a key, but even then, maybe they got lucky. Same thing with the 1 in 100s. People think that just because it's a crazy high ratio variant, they can just keep putting sky's the limit prices on this stuff. Check out what they actually go for. They tend to sell for about a third of what you probably paid to pick it up for. I've mentioned time and time again on this channel, if you're doing the whole ratio variant thing, do it because you love the book, you gotta have it. Don't do it from an investment standpoint because people are falling on their ass on this stuff. It does not retain the value. The number one collection that I have to walk away from tends to be these newer collections with 1 in 500s and crazy stuff where they just, honestly, they want your house in order to get their junk. What's something that you often find is way overpriced, especially when you know what it's actually worth? Drop it down below. Don't forget about that 50,000 subscribes. First Venom, 9-8. Could be you. See you at the next video. Make sure to come on down to Sentiment Depot's Antiques and Collectibles, located at 238 West Delaware Ave in Pennington, New Jersey. Find so many great books for just $1 and the lowest prices on key comics around. Enjoy a huge selection of graded comics priced up to 20% lower than current fair market value. We are open from Wednesday to Sunday, closed Monday, Tuesday. You got a collection you want to sell? Bring that too. Can't wait to see you there.